good source of water, fertile land, up in the mountains, clean air, with a space to build housing in different areas. But we didn't have money to build. But we decided to go forward by faith, like we did with the purchase of it. The time to hide will come after the close of probation, not now. This is not hiding time. God in His mercy is holding the winds a little longer. Make the move. You say, but I don't have any money. God has all the solutions. God already has a place for you, by the way. He already has prepared a place for you. When we bought the television network, it was right in the middle of the city. We took what we had, what came with it, the buildings, the property, we improved it, we operated there for several years, but we were praying for nearly 4 years to find the right place outside of the city. Suddenly, everything fell together and the right piece of property. We did an exchange, no cash was exchanged, just our property for your property, the same values, and we moved out of the city, but nearby. We moved out of the city to a place about 11 miles from the center of town, outside with privacy, and it's been a wonderful place. But as the quarantine and the laws and the restrictions started coming about, we knew that someday we would need to move completely far away from the city, not just outside of the city where we've been living and working. And it has been a blessing to us, but we knew it was time for a further move. So we began praying again, knowing that it doesn't happen overnight many times. But we began praying, and I communicated to some friends of mine that we were looking for a property. We didn't know where, just someplace maybe in the mountains further away from town. One day, one of our workers, a non-Adventist man who drives the vehicles for us, he said, I grew up in the area of Samaipata, and I know that area, and there's a friend of mine, that has a property with 88 hectares up in the mountains. Well, we were immediately interested, and it took a while to get up here because it was rainy season and the vehicles couldn't make it to the property. One day, we found that it was dry for several days. We tried again. We were able to come here, and we loved the property. We began saying, Lord, good source of water, fertile land, up in the mountains, clean air, with a space to build housing in different areas. And we began praying about it, but we had no idea how to purchase. One day the man said, well, are you interested or not? I said, I am, but I just don't have any money. And he said, but we ought to get started. I said, we do have one extra vehicle. We can give you the vehicle as earnest money, a down payment. It's not very much. It's only about 1/20th of the cost of the property, but we could start. He said, I'm willing. So we gave him that vehicle as a earnest down payment. And after several months, he said, well, when is the next payment coming? And we didn't have any answer. But I said, I have another vehicle that I can give. Okay, give me another vehicle. My son needs one in town. So he took that one. The question is, would we ever be able to finish paying for it or not? I didn't have the answer, because I've started projects, many projects. It's like planting agriculture. Not every seed you plant produces, but the more you plant, the more you harvest. And I've had projects that after putting money into it, we lost everything. And we've had projects that worked for a while, and then eventually we weren't able to go forward. So one never knows You just have to trust and go forward and plant and work and plant and pray and work. And so the time came when we had no more vehicles and we needed money. And then one donor was able to help with part of it, and more and more. And we kept making payments, a lot of sacrifice. And as we got very close, then we realized it was going to become a reality. And we finished paying for it. And we were just so glad to have raw property. When we came up here to camp, it was paid for. We came up here to spend a weekend. It rained. Water came under the tent. Water came through the tent. Water came from above over us. Next thing you know, we were sleeping in water. And we just said, we just sat in the car all night. It was one of the most miserable nights I have ever had in my life. And I decided we got to build. But we didn't have money to build. But we decided to go forward by faith, like we did with the purchase of it. And the house that we're recording this in, it was the first house that we built, and it was a lifesaver during those cold days when it rained and it almost down to freezing. And then today we have, I think we have about 8 houses. We have quite a few more to build, and we have a warehouse where we can store things. The Lord is really blessed. We realize we need more places for people, and we need plenty of agriculture land. Other agriculture land is becoming available near here. It's never easy to be able to buy something, but as we go forward, we find that God opens the doors, and with much sacrifice, the project goes forward. So how did we know it was God's will? Until it was paid for, we just went forward with the instructions that we were given. We knew that it had to be with a source of water. If you read Country Living in Last Day Events, it gives a lot of information, and there's many other instructions that we can find that gives us an idea of what to look for. Water, agriculture, privacy, distance. Now, one of the things that's important to note is that we were not trying to hide. This is not a time to hide. This is a time to let our light shine from the top of the hill so that all men may see the good works and glorify our Father which is in heaven. Many people say, well, how can you hide when you're telling everybody about what you're doing? And we're not trying to hide. All our neighbors know. Everybody in the city knows. We've given a concert with all the children and everything in the plaza. The mayor knows. The health work. Everything that's going on. So the whole area knows what we're doing and why we want to do it. Our neighbors have come up to visit many times. So we see that God's providence made it possible, and since we were obeying His will, we saw God made it possible, and we know it's His will because He made it possible. If it would not have been His will, we might have lost a down payment or lost something, and God would have pointed us in a different direction. But He gave us success, it was finished, and that was confirmation to us that we were walking in the right direction. Some of the main challenges that we had initially were finances. We found what we thought was the right property. We didn't know how to pay for it. But by going forward and praying and watching God, the project kept going forward and going forward. We came to the conclusion that God was opening those doors as we watched, and we watched for signs of God's approval and leading. And then eventually it was paid for. The second challenge was, how do we build on the property for all our personnel? We have quite a few people, between 50 and 70 people on our staff there at the network. Health workers, production workers, education and medical, and aviation as well. And so between everybody, we all need a place to stay. And the question is, how do we get enough money to build housing? Well, we were able to build this first house. And that, we just stacked everybody up like cordwood in here when we needed to, because there was only one roof. But after the quarantine started, this house was built before the quarantine. But once the quarantine started, because of the pandemic, it became very difficult to transport materials. And we said, well, how do we buy them? At least if we can buy them. Well, all the stores were closed. But the warehouse sold us materials, was willing to sell us materials behind closed doors. Our truck, they would open the gate, we would go in, they would close the gate, they would load all our truck up, and then they would open and close, but the store remained closed the whole time. But the warehouse was able to sell us things. We'd deposit money in their bank account, and then they would load our truck, and we would pull out with a truck 5 tons of materials. And we transported 30 tons of materials for construction. And the question is, how can you move a truck when everybody is forbidden from leaving home? Well, we discovered that the television networks were exempt from certain restrictions. The police, health workers, government officials, and media networks. And so we got special permissions to transport all the materials. We saw God providing. And then funds started coming in. We've never had funds to build houses, and all of a sudden funds came in to buy nearly 60 tons of material. They were cheap houses. They're comfortable, simple, relatively economic, fast to build, but they're heavy because it's metal. And we got everything transported to the bottom of the mountain, and then later we moved it up here, and now the road has been improved and we can bring it up straight up here, deliver the goods here. So the challenges were economic, the challenges were how to move the supplies, challenges were where to buy them when nothing is available to buy, and all of those were resolved by God. And we just see His hand opening doors and realize that there is a lot of people that are waiting for everything to come together before they obey God, before they make their move. And we realized for years now, first you make your move and then the doors open. God can open the doors first, but generally He waits for you to take the first step in obedience, and then the waters open. So that's the way we've generally worked, and we've seen God bless this project in a special way. The purpose of country living has several facets. The first one is to raise your families in a safe and spiritually safe environment, where your children are raised in an environment where they're not at risk, they're not exposed to all the temptations in the city, they're not exposed to all the media and publications that the world publishes, where they can run freely, where they can play with sticks, dig holes, help to do agriculture, work in a simplicity where parents can point their children to what God is doing, to God's nature. That's the first purpose of living outside the city, and that's the reason that for over 150 years of the Advent message, Sister White, the Spirit of Prophecy, has been telling us that we should live outside the cities, not to escape from anything, just to have a safe environment. Now, should we work in the cities? Yes. The cities have millions of people that need to be reached. So we need to work in the cities, but live outside of the cities, nearby, but in places that are spiritually safe for our families. The second thing is that as time shortens and as the pandemics and the disasters begin to happen, and we realize we're living in the last generation, the last few years of Earth's history, there's a second reason why we need to live in a country besides being in a safe place. It's so we can keep working. In the cities, quarantines lock you in your own house becomes a prison. And so you need to be able to continue working. So here in this property, we have freedom to work all over the property, to travel, visit our neighbors. There is no quarantine out here in the mountains. It's only in the cities where you can't move around. But here we can work all day long outside, we can visit our neighbors, we can transport food, we can pick up food, we can raise our own. And so definitely one reason for the living in the cities is not to hide. This is not the time to hide. The loud cry is about to begin. And the loud cry is going to flood the earth like waters cover the sea. And it's time for us to be seen, to share, to be positioned where we can continue working when others cannot work. There are two in healthcare. As a registered nurse, there's two types of people. There's patients and there's caregivers. If you're a patient, you cannot help anybody. You have to be helped. But if you're a caregiver, you can help other people. We want to be positioned in a country where we can be a caregiver. We have a place to stay, we have food, we have freedom, and we can help our neighbors, we can share, we can broadcast from right here. Recently we had high-speed internet put in so that we can reach the satellite from here, and we can do productions live from this place. It took several microwave links around the mountains to get here, but today, this morning, we were able to test everything. It's running well. We broadcast from here before. It means that we can continue broadcasting to the world as long as God allows us to, even from this location. So definitely those three things. One is to raise your family, one is to be free to work. And what about the question about hiding? Well, that will come after the close of probation. And even this location will not be safe. Angels will have to show us where to go at that point, because after the close of probation, Satan has total control of the finally impenitent. And there's nobody to be saved anymore. Everybody's made their final decision. At that point, God, like Elijah, will prepare a place for us to go. Now, of course, they will hit the cities first before it hits here. Another reason not to live in the cities is because God's judgments are about to fall on the cities. If you live in a city, you can't leave during a quarantine or a severe control. The vaccine is coming, and you won't be able to move if you don't have a vaccine. And the vaccine has many physical risks to our bodies and possibly to our minds. And we have to be very careful. This is not a normal vaccine. This was developed specifically to control mankind. And so those who stay in the cities will probably die in the cities. Now God can forgive. Samson lived among the heathen. He violated God's law. He paid the consequences, but God will save him because he confessed his sins and God gave him back his strength. But he still died with the Philistines. We don't want to die with the Philistines. We want to continue working to save. And so living outside the cities, when the judgments of God fall on the cities, those that are living outside will be protected. But the time to hide will come after the close of probation, not now. This is not hiding time. Many have asked, when should we leave the cities? Well, if you are raising a family, you should have left a long time ago. Because as we mentioned, living in the cities, living in the country is primarily a place for a safe spiritual environment for raising a family. There are many that work in the cities, but like Enoch, we need to live outside, go into the city, rescue people, preach, share, and come back outside and bring them back to God's nature again. So already we should be living. So they say, when should we leave? You should have been out already. But what is the limit do we have? How long do I have? Well, the longer we wait, the more impossible it becomes. First of all, it takes time. We learned from this property that it takes time to build. It takes time to buy materials. You can always live in a tent, but as we learned, it's pretty miserable. And those who have a comfortable home, have a roof over their head, and have tools to work with and plant are like kings and queens. If you're living in a tent, it's still better than living in a city, but it can be pretty miserable if the bad weather hits. So if the sooner you move out, sell your home while you can still buy and sell. Sell your home, sell what you have in the city. Many people write to us or call us and tell us, we would like to live in the country with you. And do you have a place for me? I said, do you have a home? Yes. Well, go sell your home and then come back and talk to me. Well, we don't want to sell our home in a city. Then stay in the city. Because they're not willing to invest their resources. They want somebody to take care of them in an emergency. But they want to stay in the city as long as possible. This is not for people like that. For people who are willing to put everything on the altar and move forward, God will open a way. In every country, there is a place God has prepared for His people. And how long do we have? Well, here in Bolivia, and probably similar situation in many other countries, we only have about 3 more months before the vaccine becomes required. Once the vaccine becomes required, you will have to have a vaccine certificate or passport to be able to travel. So if you stay in the cities until that time, even if you want to leave, you can't. And so the question is, how long? Months. Every country is different. Some countries already require it, and other countries are about to require. So it varies from country to country how much time we have. But one thing for sure, if you don't comply, with the vaccine requirements, most people will not be able to go to the grocery store, go to the bank, travel. Pilots won't be able to exercise their licenses. Chauffeurs and drivers and those who work in public locations will not be able to work there. Schools, you can't go to school unless you have it. All students will be required to have the vaccine to go to a public location where all the students are there. And so it's time to start thinking months away. By the time this video, somebody might see this video, it might be already too late. But I know that God loves people, and the reason He's brought us, we thought that late last year was going to be the last opportunity, but God is merciful. He gives us a little bit more time and a little bit more time so that people will wake up and do it. But once you make up your mind that you're not going to go out of the city, you're going to stay there no matter what, then there's nothing that God can do. But God is gracious to us to give us a little bit more time so that we can get ready and we can make the move for those that want to. There are a lot of people that ask that question of I'm undecided. I'm on the fence. I haven't decided, should I go now? Should I not go now? Should I move out of the country? What should I do? Well, as we get closer and closer, the evidence becomes greater and greater that things in the city are not going well. Pandemics, controls, 5G, many influences. The wickedness is increasing. Violence in the cities. God's judgments are about to fall in the cities. And the question is, are you really undecided? Do you really need more evidence before you make your decision? It seems like God's people have a bigger problem deciding than worldly people. Worldly people, they can see what's happening and they make a very snap decision. They're buying properties everywhere, and they're moving out of the city. If they had a property that was for sale, they're not selling anymore. They're developing it, and they plan to move there. Already, I know of many cases where people who owned a property are now developing, building on their property, simple houses, agriculture, and so on, and they can see what's happening. The question is, why are you undecided? What else do you need to convince you? Do you need the judgments of God to fall first? You wanna wait till it's too late, till the fires come on Sodom and Gomorrah? Or do you want to wait until it's impossible to leave the cities? Do you want to wait until a vaccine becomes required and then you cannot leave unless you have a vaccine? What are God's people waiting on? The evidence has been clear. I tell you why I think people wait. It's because they love the world. They love the comforts of the world. Secondly, they've lost confidence in the spirit of prophecy, and because of that, they don't want to follow the advice anymore. They believe their opinion is better than God's counsel. But I would like to encourage you. If you wait too long, the door of the ark will close. And for those that in Noah's time that waited, there was a whole week where the animals were going into the ark. But one day, the last day, it was over. The last animal went in, Noah and his family went in, and the angel shut the door. Now, there was no choice in the matter. The choice was during the last 120 years, especially during that last week, while all the animals miraculously were going into the ark. So, do you want to wait until it's too late? Because it will close one day. Suddenly you wake up and you realize, like 9/11, the event happened, you thought you had more time, and you don't have any more time. So I would like to encourage you, make your move now while the mercy's door is still open. God in His mercy is holding the winds a little longer. Make the move. Sell your house. Sell your goods. Move out, and you'll be like kings and queens living out there when nobody can, when there's starvation going on in the cities, when pandemic, there's another disease X coming along. They're telling us already there's another disease X coming along. They're going to release further bacterium. They're going to release further viruses possibly. There'll be other things, and coming in, bacteria, severe epidemics, infectious diseases that have no treatment. The virus, the COVID-19 isn't anything compared to what's about to happen. And when that happens, severe controls will happen. The devil is trying to stop the loud cry. But God is looking for people who are obedient, who are healthy, who are free, and who can follow His leading. To do that, you have to live in the country. But if you prefer to die, God can forgive you. You can ask God to forgive you, and He will. But you will still die with the Philippines like Samson did. So, do you want to be on God's team during a loud cry? Obey today. You'll have God's protection and blessing. You say, but I don't have any money. God has all the solutions. He's waiting for you to take the first step. If you take the first step, God will show you an open door, and He will make it possible, even for the weakest of the people, the weakest person, an elderly person, older people, or don't have a single mother with children. You say, but I can't. If you make the decision to go forward, you will watch God open the doors for you. That was our experience with this property. And you can say, but Uncle David, you had resources. We didn't have any resources at all for this project. But we made the decision to obey. If you do that, you will find that God will bless you also, and He will show you the way. God already has a place for you, by the way. He already has prepared a place for you. As you move forward, He will show you where that place is. So don't be discouraged. Just trust the Lord. Lord God Almighty, He has the answer. He's your Creator. He's your Redeemer. He loves you with an infinite love, and He's already made a place for you. The question is, will you obey? If you will, and if you make the decision, get off the fence and start moving, God will show you where that place is. God bless you, and I hope to share with you in the loud cry very soon. I am praying that I will be one of those that God will anoint with His Holy Spirit and prepare me, and I pray that same for you. God bless.